We've been waiting for this day for a long time. The day of the return of Rich. MVP Black will be starting in our first best of 5 tonight. The best player in the world, as he was called for many, many months throughout 2016. Everyone said this player is the best in the world. He retired, of course, very briefly. He's returned to professional play. And tonight he plays on the team that was unsuccessful in the midseason brawl, and he wants to bring them back to their former glory.
Yes, and we are going to take a look into interview soon after all the overview. We're going to have a short clip of MVP Black, of course, returning after a weekend of break, back from midseason brawl, of course. But it's a lot of hype, him having been back on MVP Black. Of course, now seems like Kyocha will be the support for the team now since Merryday retired after the midseason brawl. I wonder how the team roster is going to work out overall.
Yeah, that's going to be a big question mark moving forward. Kyocha on the support role. For a long time, everyone said he was just a Tastar player. So he does have secondary support experience. He did a lot of that when he was playing range flex. Moving into DPS, he improved quite a bit throughout the first phase of HGC Korea. But now that we're in phase 2, he has to switch back to a support-oriented role. We'll see if he can make waves. Will he be able to fill the hole that Merryday left? I don't think he will immediately. There's no way he could be as good as Merryday immediately, but they have Rich now. And one of the cool things about having Rich is his mechanical skill. His melee plays are insane. If you watch his stream or if you watched HGC for a long time, you know that Rich is a playmaker, but a lot of those plays are made on the back of Merryday's support. So we'll talk a little bit more about this as we get into the matches themselves. As you can see, we're running part 1 for a month here, and our prize pool is, as you'd expect, HGC. First place 35.
Yep, before the Eastern Clash, and all of these teams are looking for that spot in the Eastern Clash in Taiwan and later on into BlizzCon, of course, where everything will be decided. And lots of Korean teams with a lot of the roster stuff. We got to look at the 6 teams that played in the first weekend, and seems like Tempest and Mighty seems very, very strong, but with the return of MVP Black, and L5 also went through a little bit of roster change, and losing Nachojin no less could cost them a lot, but let's see. Let's just wait until the second match of today, because they will be versing Tempest, and I think that's, from the very beginning, that will be a very big mountain to climb up for them.
Definitely. Tempest looks to be much upgraded with Hunkono coming back into the roster. So I'm really, for me, excited to see how SDE performs on L5, because he's been very quietly one of the best players, DPS players in Korea, and doesn't get the respect he deserves. So looking at, of course, our worldwide standings, Team Liquid back on top with a 2-0. Gale Force as well, not quite as dominant as Team Liquid. So Team Liquid kind of staying up there at the top as we expected from them from phase 1. Didn't have the best playoff performance, of course, but still looking to be at the top for the time being. So pretty standard results here for HGC, NA, and EU. Nothing crazy except Roll20 taking that early loss.
And also Team Liquid defeating Dignitas 0-3 and 3-0. So that was, like, you guys are back from mid-season brawl. We've been preparing this much, and they took 3-0. It was a little bit surprising. That was very cool to watch, though. But here's the standing for Korea. Of course, as we talked about before, Tempest Mighty on top for now. As you see, Black L5 did not play a single match until today. And here's the matchup.
So L5 will face off against Tempest later on. It's going to be the better matchup of the night, most would argue. But a lot of people came to see Rich, as he has returned for MVP Black. So that's going to be the opening match here. So do make sure to watch both and spread the word about this. So the cool thing about the first matchup, too, is just to have Black kind of with their training wheels on to a certain extent, to see against an easier opponent, you would argue here in this team, BlossoM, how they fare. Because BlossoM definitely struggled a little bit at the beginning of the season. Gondar showed up big when they played their opening match, but after a pretty one-sided 3-0, he looked a little bit... He had a little bit more trouble when they had to face off against a stronger team the following day.
That's right, and Gondar seems to be he's adjusting. He didn't, from the beginning day, he didn't have any stage nervousness. Oftentimes when they first come in, because it's his offline event, they come in and they're nervous. They can't really focus and give off their 100%, but he seemed he was able to, and he still got lots of times, along with Modern Life, who is almost adjusted perfectly into HGC already.
Yeah, so Gondar, they're going to be a pretty promising warrior player, but against Tempest, they really had some heavy difficulties. As you can see, losing 3-0. Bringing the Varian in, we saw this weird Varian Asmodan comp come in. We saw a similar composition used now in this tournament twice, so might be kind of a thing, but to be honest with you, G-Cup, I hope not, because it doesn't look to be very strong at this moment in time. As you can see, Gondar, though, taking the wins with Anubrock and Stitches in their previous best of 5, where his Anubrock and his ETC, which is not shown, it was his first pick of HGC of his career, he looked to be quite well versed. Yeah,
that's right. In this meta where we basically from the very beginning of the game where we storm through everything and make the snowball from the beginning, it's not really the perfect pick for the meta right now, but as we have MVP Black waiting, let's see their interview.
안녕하세요. MVP 블랙에서 원거리 포지션을 맡고 있는 이준혁이라고 합니다.
안녕하세요. MVP 블랙의 리치입니다. 히어로즈 방송도 하고 하면서 놀다가 대회가 나가고 싶어져서 보면서 나가고 싶어져가지고 팀을 이것저것 알아보고 있었는데 다른 팀들도 다 연락 왔었거든요. 근데 그냥 거기서 전에 블랙 형들이랑 했던 것도 있고 숙소에서 하고 싶어가지고 블랙으로 들어왔어요.
태준이가 나가고 재훈이가 들어왔는데 재훈이가 잘하니까 재훈이가 들어가고 남은 자리가 이제 지원가 자리인데
저는 뭐 좋게 보고 있어요. 교차 형은 워낙 이것저것 다 잘하는 형이라서
많은 선수들이 왔다 갔다 하는 것보다 자기가 가는 게 맞는 것 같다 하고 자기가 주체적으로 이제 옮긴다고 했어요.
엘바 엄청 강하죠. 그렇기 때문에 주의할 팀이라고 생각합니다. 정말이요? 솔직히 탱커가 바뀌어가지고 많이 약해진 것 같아요. 애초에 뱀픽이랑 운영이랑 이니시랑 다 해본 사람이라서 크죠, 빈자리가.
우승팀 MVP 블랙!
2등 안에는 들겠죠. 그리고 목표는 1등이에요. 팀을 잘 이끌어 나가서 대만에 있을 이스턴 클래시랑 또 NOIM에 있는 블리즈컨 둘 다 우승하는 그런 완벽한 모습 보여드리도록 노력하겠습니다.
오랜만에 대회 다시 돌아와서 하는 건데 항상 좋은 모습 보여드리도록 노력하고 1등 해가지고 블리즈컨도 한국팀이 우승할 수 있도록 노력해보겠습니다.
There you have it. Rich is back. This man says he rejoined the team, wanted to play in a tournament again after his long break, and specifically wants this team to be good enough to win BlizzCon, to show the pride of Korea. This team was so dominant throughout the 2016 circuit, but in 2017 didn't have the strongest performances. It was L5 who trumped them in the top standings for HGC Korea. And then going into Eastern Clash, this did not meet the fans' expectations, as the strongest region in the world was always Korea for Heroes of the Storm, minus BlizzCon, where we had the fluke run of Cloud9. The year of 2016 was dominated by Koreans, but going into 2017, this is no longer the case. So MVP Black, one of the big contenders to take top 3 for this season, to then move into BlizzCon and prove themselves yet again. They had a bad BlizzCon last year, didn't even make the finals.
And with Rich coming in as the key player, I think we'll get a better understanding of the entire team, how their roster is working out, or if they can take the crown back from EU to bring it back to NA. We'll see, as he did not play anything in competitive. Yes, we see his favorite heroes, Malthel, already. I've been watching his stream. He seems crazy good on this hero already. And he can basically play anything and he'll be super good. And that's exactly what MVP Black wants from him. So having him on the team is always a plus.
As King's key points say, no other words are needed. He's back. And MVP Black is in his hands. Showing Thrall as one of his favorite heroes is an interesting one. Of those 3 heroes, the one that's going to be most important that he showed is actually the Greymane. Considering Greymane is very meta right now. Thrall not so much. Malthale probably going to be permabanned for the majority of at least the first few weeks, as we are on the Malthale patch, actually.
That's right, 26.0.
The patch that has all the Malthale release patch with all those changes, not the changes that were announced just today. Not that patch, that's going to be coming later, so.
That's going to be the following weekend. It seems it's already been announced by by Heroes Esports. And we're going to see lots of bans of Malthale. Sadly, maybe, I wish we get to see at least one today.
Well, the Cursed Hollow ban here by BlossoM is pretty warranted, considering the MVP teams are so good at the timings on this map. You have a mechanical monster like Rich on this map, could rip you to shreds if he gets the Illidan pick. the Abathur synergy that we've seen so often early on in this tournament. That's going to be something to watch out for against MVP Black and Rich. The combo between, in the old days, Kyocha and Rich with the Abathur is quite a scary one to behold. In this case, of course, it will be Sake playing the Abathur if that ends up coming to pass. But anyway, we're going to Dragonshire, so a longer map. And I feel like if MVP Black comes in full force, this is one of those maps you can really feel the heat because it's a map that normally goes very long. Almost every game goes post 20. But with MVP Black, maybe they can end it sooner.
And nowadays, because we saw a lot of Illidan coming in for global, the hunt really became the meta. EU and lots of Korean teams seems to be perfected on Illidan. And having Rich on the team, of course, the God Illidan player. Let's see as we get into Dragonshire. Going to be first ban going to BlossoM.
That's right. This is the map pick of MVP Black as we load into this one.
Gosh, Rich back in. I'm so hyped and excited already.
I am too. I mean, you have to take into account other heroes. You have to take into account his carrying play. You know, his playmake ability is insane. So we'll see the Genji banned here first for BlossoM. But you have to consider other heroes too. Rich showed at the end of the 2016 season the Fall Championship a proclivity to play Chen, oddly enough. You know, he's a really good Chen player, very terrific Arthas player, these heroes that are super important. We could very well see him play the Anub'arak, which you don't think of Anub'arak as a high skill hero, you think of as a high impact hero, but not a hero that is, okay, this is a Rich hero. You think of Illidan, you think of the Thrall, you might think of the Chen. But with Anub'arak now in the meta, was never really strong when Rich was on the team. So excited to potentially see some Rich Anub'arak. Not going to happen, though, in Game 1.
Seems like they want to just open Genji, open Malthael, open Illidan, which Mighty last weekend has been banning straight all 5 games against Tempest. They have been banning Illidan all 5 games. That's how strong Illidan is right now within the top Korean teams. And not just Dehaka, especially when Dehaka is banned. There is a global with the hunt. So MVP Black, of course, knowing the macro on this map, will pretty likely to use that against BlossoM right now.
Yeah, and remember the extra playmaking ability for Rich was often provided by Meride, who was the support at the time. Now that they have Kyocha's performance will affect how much Rich can actually do on these big melees, how much he can dive in. So Kyocha's for Rich, I feel like you can pretty much just be guaranteed, without even watching, knowing he's going to perform today. For Kyocha, though, not as certain. We see Uther locked in first here with the Genji removal, so no shocker. And this leaves up Illidan if MVP Black wants to go that way.
Also, Malthael is open.
That's true.
It's up in the air. Maybe they want to... Usually, if they go for the niche pick, it's always the 5th pick. That's the MVP way. MVP Black way, especially. When they have some surprise picks, they always do it at the very last pick, when their 2nd pick especially. And also, we do not have any idea of Kyocha's support hero pools too. So when Uther is taken away, when this is... Okay, there we go. That's MVP Black from the beginning for you guys. Auriel and Illidan,
well,
right off.
Talking about support pools, we're going to see Kyocha's first televised game ever of Auriel. So we'll see how he plays the hero, and with Illidan coming in, you wouldn't necessarily see this prioritization outside of the MVP teams, and when you have Rich now back, and this is his best hero, historically has always been known as the best Illidan in the world. You know, people may disagree now, but for most of his career that was the case, and it's an unusual pairing with Auriel as well. You could see that Illidan's DPS when stacked up his attack speed is quite high, just like Vala, so he can build up that hope, but he's not a ranged assassin, he's melee, so it's a little bit tougher to make it work on the fly. So we'll see if he can actually make this happen, or if they're going to run something else like a Gul'dan or the Vala.
They can even go for double support. I mean, this one, of course, this patch, we have to mention that Malfurion is super nerfed, so we won't see as much Malfurion for sure.
Well, Kel'Thas is here to pair with the double stun here. We've got the stitches into the gravity lapse into, or perhaps the hook into the Hammer of Justice, then the gravity lapse. The order doesn't matter as much as the chaining of the stuns. So you got to be careful with your positioning if you're Auriel.
If this is gonna be all in Illidan comp, then ban Arthas. I think that's a very safe ban. But if they know they already have pretty good CC, so going for the tank or even the DPS, maybe banning something like Vala or Tychus, I think that's also a very good ban here.
It's interesting they pick up the Stitches this early. So another hero they could think about removing would potentially be the Arthas. But you have it's going to be Malthael. When you have the Stitches this early, you don't necessarily think about Arthas. But this leaves open Tyrael. Now, it'd be interesting to see the Medivh ban because that would force a unusual pick. It would probably be Sake that would end up playing the Medivh if this were the case, because you have to consider that Rich is the Medivh player. For MVP Black, he always was back when Medivh was meta, if you go back to BlizzCon. So, an unusual ban here. It's not one I really personally agree with too much, because this doesn't really fit the rules of how Black puts players on heroes. Because if you're dealing with Sake's Rich, or Sake's Medivh. Sake's Medivh. If you're dealing with Sake's Medivh, it's a little bit less terrifying in general. And if it's not Sake, then they can't play it anyways because Illidan is already being played by Rich. So I think this ban's a little bit strange. There are other heroes that can provide protection.
Yeah, and Sake can also go to his old favorite, Falstad. Falstad is also very powerful. Of course, he will have to wait a little bit until level 20, which will force MVP Black to be a little bit passive compared to how they want to go. So they're going to go all in aggressive, using that Auriel pick from the beginning, bringing the Vala, and also taking Arthas because they did not ban it. They know BlossoM is going to take it 100%, so they take it instead.
I think an amazing fifth pick here would just be the Tyrael. You have invulnerability for Vala. She builds so much hope. You give the protection to Illidan. He'll likely go hunt, but even still, the extra damage will be there. For the first time, we've really seen Rich play Illidan in a long time, not only because of his retiring, but because he didn't really play it that much at BlizzCon. And to see him potentially go hunt instead of Metamorphosis would be a different take on what we've seen from him. So many tournaments, so many amazing games that MVP Black played throughout 2016. So excited to see what he ends up choosing. But for BlossoM here, there's something, another DPS and another tank, perhaps a melee. So tough answer here to deal with all this DPS. And they already have Kael'thas. I don't think Li Ming is in the picture. Might just want to pick up the Tychus to bust down the tanks. Probably what they're going to be looking to grab here. Nope, Greymane with only the Uther protection. Interesting. And the Dahaka for solo lane control. I like the Dahaka pick a lot because it's going to give them the ability to pressure the top lane. No globals whatsoever on the side of Black. You could argue the Hunt could be a pseudo-global, but it's not going to have the same impact that Dahaka will have starting from level 1.
Yeah, Dahaka also pressures a lot of the dive-ins like Illidan and also Genji because of the swamp and the drag that Dahaka has when it comes in. Of course, it's a non-target. It's sometimes very hard to focus, but once you get the drag, you can focus onto one target and you can blow up every dive. And last pick Tastar makes it perfect for MVP Black, giving protection to Vala and Illidan when they need it.
Kind of all in though. I feel like it doesn't give you a strong front line. All you have is the Arthas. So you have the double support for Illidan and Vala. 2 targets to split the heals between. So definitely a little bit aggressive. We'll see exactly how Illidan wants to build here and if he wants to run the Hunt or Metamorphosis. If he runs Metamorphosis, I can make a better argument for this one. But if he's going Hunt here, just a little bit of a lack of a front line. But it is time, finally, for MVP Black to make their debut in Phase 2 and Rich's debut in the 2017 season. Get your hype pants on, guys. We're going into game number 1. In blue, it is Team BlossoM with Wiz on Uther, Gondar on Stitches, Mora on Dahaka, Dudu on Kael'thas, and No Chat on Greymane.
And in red, MVP Black, reset on Vala, Sake on Tastar, Kyocha on Aria, Rich on Illidan, Tist on Arthas. Here we go, Rich is back and he is on Illidan.
So we're going to have the Kael'thas Mana Addict built into it level 1 here. Enjoying the respect given for Idudu here. Also, note the positioning of MVP Black. They take a more conservative stance here at level 1 against the Stitches pick. We always talk about how in Heroes of the Storm, it feels like for a long time it was just run down mid-level 1 and fight, because it almost felt like it was tradition, right? But when you have these you know, annoying, aggressive tanks to deal with at level 1, like the ETC in the past, the Stitches, see teams like MVP Black give that respect, avoid that conflict in the middle of the map, find a split here, and they find bonus EXP in all lanes, even nearly destroying that top wall here with the Illidan pick at level 1. Very well coordinated.
Let's see how well Modern Life plays on Dehaka. It's been a pretty long time since he's been playing on Dehaka. And the entire team comp of BlossoM basically relies on the grab coming from Stitches and some pair up with CCs. Let's see if they can get any picks, because Black does have all the mobility they use. The perfect target will be Ariel, and hopefully they can snowball that into a lead. When I'm speaking of that, Black is already making this snowball on top. Crazy pressure onto the top lane.
Tastar building into his auto attacks at level 1, so just constantly trying to get any auto he can up there in the top lane. 3v2 down here, and Coach is just outplaying Gondar, dodges the hook. And they got zoned out of a little bit of EXP here, but it's pretty insignificant compared to how much they're able to accomplish up here in the top lane. This is essentially a lane swap, what we're seeing here from MVP Black. You normally see the solo laners in the top lane on this map. Black brings a tough solo laner with support, so it's a duo lane. Kind of a new meta shift here to punish the Dehaka play. This forces a rotation, and MVP Black sloppily will give away first blood here, but what we see from BlossoM was a bit of a late reaction there to dealing with this heavy aggressive push. And, you know, lane swaps is something we don't see too often in Heroes of the Storm. You usually hear about that in other MOBAs, right? But in Heroes of the Storm, if you have these two strong laners with so much sustain in the top lane, it makes it tougher for a solo laner to sit there, and he took so much abuse.
And when Dehaka should be the one actually pushing, because they had the the lane swap, they really had the high pressure onto the top. Dehaka has been just soaking EXP for now, but gladly, just with Greymane, they did get a kill, managed to get a kill onto Rich. So it's I'd say BlossoM's off to a pretty good start too.
Yeah. They, you know, obviously got a little bit of pressure done to the mid lane, and they had the extra roam ability of the top and mid lane. So we've seen this kind of funky duo with Vala and Ariel for extra sustain and extra support in lanes. Very cautious play in this case. When we saw it with the D.Va play coming out from Mighty, it was more aggressive. But I like this, just keeping them together as a duo in lane. So much sustain here. They do get invaded, though. Coach will just barely be able to keep Vala alive. And because they're so spread out, BlossoM is able to make plays like this, steal the caps. They have both Siege Giant caps now, and I don't know if this sustain that I was just talking about is going to be enough to protect these towers.
I think they got a little bit aggressive and greedy from taking both camps at the same time, because BlossoM, when they saw the camp was being taken on the top, they went all in, invaded into it. Black really could not really defend both of them at the same time. BlossoM made a smart move. The shot calling was perfect for the time being. And even though Gondar has been missing lots and lots of hook that we saw on screen, I think
There's a good one, though. That's going to be the pick on the reset. Nicely done, the chain there. Tist coming from a weird angle, going to try to get the kill on the Dudu. They will get it. Wiz tries to heal up here. He actually might find himself caught with the auto attack. Speed slows coming out from Sake. Wiz just dives in for the suicide. Wants to have his death timer as low as possible. We'll heal up the Siege Giants as well. Part of the reason why he dove in like that, to give them some extra heal, so they are a little bit more annoying to deal with here. So finally, we're about to see, you know, the power of this Illidan top lane push with the double support there, or the, you know, Tastar support diminished. The returns diminished, the Siege Giant pressure got the bottom fort, so all the work they put in with that was taken away. But look at the body block, the zoning here from Tist. They are going to get a Dragon Knight regardless. No one was there in the bot lane because of the pick onto Wiz to deny this, and really good zoning coming out from the Arthas.
Nicely done, and also pushing the top lane so far back, because the Dehaka had to be on the back, all the way back, soaking for EXP. Could not really come down and help. Of course, Gondar caught once again, healing for the time being, but will get caught.
Well, this is going to be an insane early Dragon Knight here. We'll get the mid wall finally taken away. It's been a pretty tough mid matchup for Black this game because the resources committed to the top lane, but finally going to kind of even that out. Now look to even find some damage in the bot lane. And all it takes is one Dragon Knight to put them a level ahead. They are going to get level 10 first as well with this one.
Yeah, because if they get level 10 before, but BlossoM doesn't really care too much. They just have to soak in the XP, and Dehaka's pushed so far back, but when he goes overstep the line, there's no fort in the top lane. Illidan will come and probably, and with the hunt now, will come and punish Dehaka whenever he comes off from his team.
Yeah. I like to see the hunt here, given the way that they're playing this and how much pressure they're putting on with Rich in the top lane. It's a Jungha-esque style that we saw them use throughout Phase 1 when they were playing Illidan, so this is probably going to become the new meta. I thought Metamorphosis might have been the choice because they committed to the secondary support, but now we know why they drafted the Tastar. It's not for the team fights, it was for the extra lane pressure, so you have two insanely good sustaining supports. Oh, look at this. Hunt used. More is going to be taken out. Ooh, Wiz comes over for the heals, though.
And he popped the adaptation, so he did get all the HP back. That's a good trade for the cooltime, though. The Hunt will be back in 35, and the adaptation not back in 75 seconds, so almost double.
Just to finish the thought, you know, I mean, when you have the Illidan play that's used to split push more than team fight, and you have the extra sustained healing that Valla has with no mana, so basically Valla's healed up forever with no mana cost with Ariel, then you can split these 2 and 2, then have the mid lane be like decent with Arthas there, kind of soloing. So you have the 2-1-2 split. It works really well with the Hunt because that empowers Illidan and allows him to, you know, teleport around the map and continue to split pressure. So I like this choice now that I see what the draft is designed to do. It's not going to be the best in team fighting, but it's going to help them with the stun coming in if BlossoM gets overextended or leaves someone in a lane too far. There's a lot of benefits there. And
I like how BlossoM is taking the advantage because they have the lead onto especially the pressure onto the bottom lane. Really trying to control the global already because they know Illidan does have the Hunt. They have the global available for themselves, so instead BlossoM is starting ahead so they don't fall behind too much from the beginning of the fight.
Well, this push here is going to be annoying to deal with. No chat coming over to clear, but can't really get into range of the Siege Giants without getting Force Wall blocked, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. He took the words out of my mouth by stepping over that wall. You step over the wall, try to kill the Siege Giants, you get picked immediately. So that's annoying. The coordination from Black today is good in terms of map rotation, which has always been their forte. Tist, on the other hand, might get traded for this, as we do see Rich finally comes in. Adaptation to dodge this, but that's actually might be enough peel. The Siege minions there are the mercenaries blocking the hook. Very well played by Black.
I think Rich attacked the camp intentionally, so that the hook was blocked, and perfect placement of positioning of both. Reset, though, on the other hand, does get healed and shielded, and even Aegis comes on. Is that going to be enough for the protection? No, it is not.
Oh, Rich is going to take the top shrine, and they are going to try to turn this into a 1-for-1. No chat, though, will escape. Howling Blast comes out to buy a little bit more time. Can he get the channel? Looks like he was considering it. Kyocha is buying some more time here. He's coming over. The Unleash. Will he be able to get it? Dudu's coming over for it. He just barely denies it. Close call here on the side of BlossoM. Mana Addict is now completed, so we'll have that barrier. But good coordination from BlossoM when things went a little bit too aggressive there for MVP Black.
And also they knew that MVP Black was trying to buy time through having a long team fight. They knew that Illidan was coming down, so very good coordination and knowing what the other team was doing and channeling on that shrine. Great job by BlossoM. Looks like the shot calling and really bringing out this team come together. BlossoM is on top of what they're doing, but they're against MVP Black right now, which from what we've seen so far, it's only 9 minutes into the game, but Black does not seem super perfect yet.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely some holes in the armor, if you will, but I think that the idea of this draft, although it feels a little bit experimental to me, is pretty cool. And the coordination we saw to help peel for retreating members and the 2-1-2 split where you have good sustain in both lanes and Illidan gets the heavy push on. I like these ideas a lot. And still early on in this game, as it is Dragonshire, so 10 minutes in. Still an early game, no keep walls really damaged yet. See what changes as we go forward. As I was saying, the Illidan split pressure becomes harder and harder to do the longer the game goes on. Talking about split pressuring a fort, that's one thing. A keep, that's quite far away. It's quite risky. Gonna need a lot of pressure elsewhere on the map in order to make that valuable. Actually neglects the camp for a second. Oh,
There's
this
a
is bad.
gorge, but
He used
was
all the
already
CC
used.
earlier,
Yeah.
yeah. So this ends up being a pretty solid situation here for MVP Black. Rich did neglect clearing that camp to the top lane right now because he was more interested in grabbing this Dragon Knight. Looks like he is going to get it here. The top mercenary camp still being annoying, but Divine Shield even wasted here. When we saw the hook coming in, it felt like it was just a matter of reflexes coming out with the gravity lapse. Like, oh, he hooked, I'm supposed to gravity lapse here. But he wasted it too early. The Gorge and that gravity lapse didn't synergize together. It was anti-synergy even. Negative synergy to reference an old esports team.
That's some lack of communication, and also because they had to use Divine Shield on, looks like Thunder is caught again in the front line. And even Wiz is caught rooted, gets a lot of damage, gets very low. Dragon Knight is on him and he's gone. Ooh.
Well, more kicks going down. This looks like it might be a pretty easy keep here for Black with the healer removed now. Just don't have a lot of room to work with. Can't really get aggressive because of the force wall potential. Illidan is going to be the one that pops out of this Dragon Knight, so there's a lot of aggressive follow-up that could happen if you really try to overextend and defend. Looks like they are going to be content with the keep. They will disengage here. Not going to commit to the core or any further mid-keep damage. They'll just walk away.
Finally, because the Haka was soaking top, they did get 16, but their keep is gone already in 12 minutes. And BlossoM, they also have their style. I think they have the theme. Oftentimes they were called the team without a color, but with the theme, I think the shot calling is on point in game number 1, but their coordination that often, what you just saw with the Gorge and the Gravity Labs, did not really connect. If they can perfect those out, I think they have what it takes. They can grab anyone and get a kill, even Arthas.
Yeah, they just need to step up the coordination. Black is a tough team to try to play Stitches into because they have such an understanding of the way the hook works and the positioning to deal with that. As we saw earlier with the aggro being taken onto the Knight camp, so the Knights would block the Stitches hook, things like this. Stitches is very much a hero that fishes, right? That's why he's got the hook. And when you fish, so sometimes you catch, sometimes you don't. And if your opponent plays perfectly every time, Stitches is useless. You kind of have to have good coordination when you can find a mistake like this. Unfortunately, it didn't land the hook there. Close call with the fishing hook upgrade at 16. But, you know, if you can't land the hooks in the first place for one reason or another, if you can't do your best JPL impression, then sometimes the Stitches pick looks weak. And in this case, we saw a few good hooks, a few picks. The last one, the bad coordination. But MVP Black just has the overall better draft when it comes to fighting and lane pressure, and that's why they got the early keep. That's why they got that last Dragon Knight.
Yeah, of course everything you said is true, but all you need is one good blind hook coming out from the wall, and if you get isolated without escapes, that could be the end of the game when we go past minute 20 on this map. So I think they have what it takes still. Oh, and no check getting caught like that will be very painful, but of course, again, Divine Shield on Uther himself, that's going to limit a lot of protection for BlossoM.
Ooh, a lot of heroics already used on the side of BlossoM. Good Gorge here, actually, by Gondar. And Kyocha does pop out here. Does have Aegis available. Looks like No Chat's going to be the first to fall. Gondar took so much damage during that aggressive Gorge. Rich D, he backed away from the fight. He disengaged there for a moment, tried to get his health back, got Ella back, and this is going to be the full team wipe here as Tist locks him down. Now on the core, MVP Black looking to end this game. A longer game number 1 than perhaps a lot of would have expected, but they're still going to do it in sub 15 minutes. We'll win it in 10 to 4 kills with a unique double support Vala Illidan draft that worked out really well in the early game. That's going to be it. GG. Black puts the first point on the scoreboard.
As you mentioned, Black, I really thought BlossoM also played really well from the beginning. They had their tempo rolled in, but Black, of course, knowing the macro, and Rich having the global pressure. The Haka was also pressured because of the forward push, as you mentioned from the beginning of the game. couldn't really go too far because Illidan, every time he stepped a little bit over the bridge, he came in with the hunt and he was pressured. He was forced to go back. He couldn't really even soak up too much EXP himself.
Well, we'll see where Black wants to take us. As you and I were kind of planning out how we thought this series was going to go before this broadcast began, everyone expects us to be a 3-0 for Black. The maps that we see, though, a little bit tougher to predict, but if we go back to history of MVP Black when they played against BlossoM or the bottom 3 teams in the past, it was GG, BlossoM, Raven, that would often take us to Sky Temple for the second map. So I have a feeling that's where we're going to head here as well. And then we might finish things off on BOE if they continue the streak of winning. But it wasn't the dominant first game. It was not a crushing defeat for BlossoM, so they can definitely bounce back here.
Yeah, I also saw lots of pulls, especially Kyocha sometimes being off position. When he's a support, he should be onto the back line, not to the sideline. He was often on the side, he was really it seemed like he was having a little bit tough time deciding which one to heal, because it was an AoE also at the same time, because Illidan is always in the front, Vala's off to the side. So it gave him a hard time to position himself, but maybe with the other supports, maybe he can show better positioning later on. And BlossoM, if they see him onto the side, maybe that he should be the target that they should be going for.
Well, that's who they were trying to gorge most of the time. You remove the ability to Aegis, you get some picks, maybe you kill Rich in that moment in time. Then Ariel comes out of the gorge, but it's too late to Aegis, and then Vala's already dead because she didn't have that much healing. She only had the Tastar shields. That was the idea, the thought process there. Or maybe you hook the Ariel, force the Aegis early, then take the team fight. But it was always Black that was proactive, engaging with the hunt, forcing Divine Shield to be used early. Things like this that I feel like really hurt BlossoM there in the end. But the idea was cool. I don't know if it will work against a team like L5 yet because it's more new. It's not completely figured out yet, but I like the draft that we saw from Black.